Okay, so in this video, we're gonna put together our all new haunted house. And this is probably, I wouldn't say the most challenging project that we've had. I will say that it probably has the most pieces as far as all the little details go, but we designed it in a very systematic way so that pretty much anybody at any skill level can put this together. As long as you can get the pieces cut out and follow along the instructions with me, you're gonna have a beautiful, or spooky in this case, haunted house. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're gonna do is, and again, we're working systematically here, we are going to put down our vellum. Okay, so you'll notice that these larger structure pieces, they all have a little L cut into them. Well, I should say there's a left side, a right side, and a center part of the haunted house, and we join them all together at the end to make the assembly a lot easier. So the first thing you want to do is sort all your pieces according to the letters. So in this case, in front of me here, this piece has an L, this piece has an L, this piece has an L down here, and this piece has an L here. This little dormer window also has a little L on it, so you know that this goes with this. So we can go ahead and begin by getting our vellum all in place here. So I'm just going to get my glue ready, and I did a lot of pre-inking ahead of time because there are a lot of little details. You can ink or you can choose not to ink. I would say that because this is a Halloween project, you definitely want to go heavy on the ink to give it a really old and decrepit look. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and begin putting our vellum in place. Okay, and as usual, whenever possible, we want to go ahead and just kind of crease everything as you go, just to kind of get everything in place and ready to go. And that will also help ensure that when we put our vellum down, we don't obstruct any of the creased areas. Okay, so just look for any creased areas and just make sure that you fold them. Now this large cutout here, we're not putting any vellum on there. That is actually a little hole for the back so that you can put a little tea light in there. Okay, so the main structure for the left and the right side is made up of these four pieces here that you're gonna cut out of the same color. We did it in a like a boysenberry color, and then there's the dormer window, which is a different color. And then I'll show you where the vellum goes. Now this piece here obviously gets glued right to the interior of that piece. Now on the back of this, this window is going to take this little piece here. This is just a little hole for the dormer window, so you don't put anything there. Okay, for this guy here, the actual dormer window, we're going to use this colored vellum. For this, we're going to use this colored vellum at that shape. And for the little entryway window, we're going to use this color here. Okay, so you can go ahead and again, just make sure you get everything nice and creased before you get your vellum glued down. So I'm going to go ahead and begin getting my vellum in place here, and I am going to use little dots around the perimeter of these windows and then add a few little dots into the little details here. Okay, and we'll get that glued down. Just make sure that you're not obstructing the score marks. And again, I had you fold those so that we don't accidentally put the vellum over it. Okay, so here is our next piece. I'm going to go ahead and get all this folded, just like that. Okay, and we're going to pop that right on there. And we're actually going to also put our panels on all of these flat pieces while they're flat, because it's just a lot easier to work with things when they're flat. So let's get this piece on there. Okay, so that's that and that's that. Go ahead and flip that right side up. Okay, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. There's a lot of little pieces here, but again, I'm going to walk you through it systematically, and we'll make sure that we get everything just right the first time. Okay, so again, just make sure you get everything nice and folded, and let's go ahead and get this vellum glued into place. Just go ahead and push down. Now you see I went a little bit outside the boundary. It doesn't matter though. No one's going to see the inside of this, so it's not the end of the world. Okay, now let's get this piece in. Just make sure that if you're using like AC cardstock that you have your texture side out. Otherwise, things may not work out properly. You might end up with two left sides, so make sure you keep all the pieces right side up. Okay, there we go. Now let's get that glued in place. Just make sure you don't obstruct any of the score marks. Okay, so that's that. All right. I went a little heavy on the glue there, and you see what happens here. The paper warps. Okay, and I talk about that sometimes in my videos, how I don't like that. But luckily, we have some panels that are going to go over this, so we need not worry too much. Okay, so let's just move these pieces off to the side for a second. So that is the left side of the house. We got the the vellum there. And actually, I missed the little dormer window. So let's go ahead and just get that all folded, and let's put our vellum on there. Let's get that all ready to go. Okay, and I need to be a little more gentle with my glue here. Otherwise, we're going to get a bunch of warped paper, and we don't want that. Luckily, again, we do have panels for pretty much everything on this project, and that will help us clean up any of those little imperfections. Okay, so that's one side of the house. Now, just for the sake of repetition, let's do the right side of the house now. So get everything nice and folded. Okay. And again, we're just going to build this thing systematically. It looks like a lot, but it's not. And it's totally worth all the little detail, because this thing is going to look pretty awesome. I have another word I want to use, but I won't. So I want to keep this show PG. It's going to look BA, if anybody knows what that means. Okay, so let's get this piece of vellum in place. Oops. I went a little crazy there. It's going to look like the window's a little cracked. No, looks fine. Okay, so that's that piece. And let's move on over to this piece here. Again, let's get all the tabs nice and folded. Flip this over and get this piece on there. Just little dots. Maybe one in the center there. And just push down. Just like that. There we go. Okay. All right, and for this one, we want this sort of, what do they call those things? Guillotines, I guess. Guillotine shaped piece here. And get that in place. Smooth it out, push it down. Okay, that looks good. Next piece here. This is the little bottom part of the house. It's going to look like that. Okay, let's get this color here. And again, just dots. If you feel like you put down too thick of a dot and that it might sort of warp the paper like mine did, just smooth it out with your finger. Don't let it warp. There we go. Just brush that right on. There we go. And last of the right side here, and then we're going to do the center column of the house. And we'll be done with the vellum. Then we can work on our panels. We can even do the overlays. I think it's just a lot easier to work on stuff when everything's flat. Okay, so this is a pretty large piece, and that's fine. We're going to, again, just gonna dot it. Just kind of visualize that shape. And dots all over. Just like that. And just lay that down. Kind of look at, pretend that each little dot is like a nail. You know, when they build houses, they use a lot of nails, but not too many. Each one holds a certain amount of weight. Okay, so that looks great. All right, so let's take this left side of the house and let's just put that off to the side for a second. And let's get the center tower. Now, the center tower is made up of these pieces here. We're not actually putting any vellum on this or this, so I'm just gonna put that back to the side here. And actually, this is the back, or is it? Yes, it is. We don't need to put any vellum on that, and that is the top of the tower. We don't need vellum on that. So it's just this center piece here. So go ahead and fold. Get everything nice and folded. Okay, and this is signified by the letter M for middle. Okay, so that is your middle piece. And we've got, goes like this. This is the top window, middle window. This is the door. Okay, and the way this works is like this. Okay, so actually, no, I'm sorry. It goes like this. Okay, there is a little hole here because we're gonna end up making one part of the door with some yellow or orange vellum here. Okay, so it's gonna get glued down like this. So go ahead and start working those dots around the perimeter. Yep. Just like that. Get some in the little details here. You can pretty much tell when that glue is starting to really dry. For some reason, the glue is really drying on me really quick today, and I think it might be the lack of humidity. Okay, so just make sure you don't obstruct that little diamond in the center there, but make sure that you cover everything else up. But don't encroach over that little score mark on the bottom there. Okay. So that is what it should look like there. This piece here is going to go around these little cutouts here. So just get a little bit of glue in that spot there and glue that down. And then the circular one is going to go up here. And we're just going to pop that right in place. There we go. Okay, so we may as well begin by working on the panels for our center tower. Okay, and might as well just grab them here and let's just kind of fit them first before we do anything else, before we actually put them on. Okay, so this one is separated into two. And it's going to connect like that. Okay, and you just want to make sure that you're not obstructing any of the vellum cutouts. Okay, so we can go ahead and get our glue on our panel here. Now I embossed this panel with a Cuttlebug embossing folder. This is one that I've had for quite some time. We checked and it's not available anymore, but there are other like horizontal embossing folders that would still do the job. I just really like this one because it's really kind of gangly and distressed and just very uneven and imperfect. Okay, so let's get that lined up nicely with the cutouts. Okay, and then of course we have overlays that are going to go on top of this to actually create the structures themselves. Okay, so this is kind of like we're just putting siding on a house right now. Okay, so this is going to go right here, and that should fit perfectly. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is sometimes, and I've noticed this with, I don't know the name of the embossing folder, but one of them sort of stretches out the paper and it makes it longer than it really is. So if by chance you're using an embossing folder to give the impression of like siding, and you're noticing that the paper's just not fitting properly, it could be because it's actually stretching the paper. Okay, so get that in place. It might look like a little seam there, but it still looks good because we've got a lot of stuff going on here horizontally, so you shouldn't really be able to tell that much. Okay, now this is the front, okay, and on the side here, let me make sure I get that nice and in place. I'm not actually putting anything on this side here because the other side of the right side of the house is going to be connected to that. So that is pretty much it for that piece. Now what we do have is this piece here. Okay, so we can actually, this is the other half of the center tower, and what we're going to do, well, that's going to be connected like that. We've got this cut out here so it doesn't obstruct this little vellum piece, but this is the back part here, and that does have a panel. Okay, and that's this panel. I actually did ink and emboss this as well. We're going to pop that on the back just to make it look nice and spooky. Okay, so I think Halloween really lends itself to a lot of embossing, a lot of inking, a lot of distress, just anything you can do to kind of make things look creepy. And that's why I really like to craft for Halloween. This is definitely my favorite time of the year to put together paper projects, because you can get kind of wacky with everything. So when you put this down, just make sure that you get it nice and centered and that you have a nice even border going all the way around. It doesn't have to be perfect, but do your best. Get that right on there. Okay, and as you can see here, my inking, I was actually a lot more, just went a little more crazy than I usually do with the inking and really brought it in. I wasn't so concerned about the gradient effect. I didn't want it to be perfectly even. I just went kind of crazy in some places. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay, so that is the back. There's really nothing on the back, but just this panel. But as far as the front goes, okay, let's go ahead and decorate the front with the little pieces. Okay, so for the front of our tower, I've already done a lot of pre-inking for this. I actually spent quite some time inking this whole project here, and I actually just used a brown ink for the entire project, as we're using a lot of dark colors, so it blends very well. For the windows here, I'm just going to do a real subtle inking around them. This is not as intense of an inking as I did for some of the other parts. I'll kind of go over that a little bit as we progress through this assembly here, as far as I guess what I would call a more intense inking. But I do want these to kind of stand out a little bit more. You get the edges, it just kind of makes them look more pronounced. Just adds a little more interest to it before you glue it down. So just kind of like that. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing to this part here. There's some olive colored overlays that go on top of this, so I don't really need to ink the two sides with the little, I forget what they're called, fleur de lis, I think, or something like that. Just gonna ink those a little bit. But anyway, so we're gonna flip this part over, and I'm gonna go ahead and, again, just very subtle with the glue. I don't want a lot. I don't want it to penetrate through the paper. I don't want it to crease the paper. So I'm just being very delicate with my glue on these pieces here. A little goes a long way. Make sure that you get some glue on the inside here. And I think I might need to clean my nozzle up a little bit. Okay, but just make sure that when you put this down, you're not obstructing any of the vellum area. As long as you follow the existing little cross that's on there, you know that you have it down correctly. So get that glued into place. Okay, and then on the back of these guys here, we're going to add a little bit of glue. And just lay that down right on top of that cutout there. There we go. And same with the other one. I think I saw a message somewhere I should put my glue upside down in like a little shot glass or something, and I might just have to do that just so I don't have to constantly keep shaking it. Okay, so there's our first piece here. All right, the next piece is going to get glued down right there like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get our glue onto this piece here. Just make sure that you get as much glue out to the edge as you can so we have a nice clean finish, a nice clean seam. Get some in the center there. And just pop that down. Just look at the center here. Just get that nice and aligned with the center of that window. Nice and centered. So let's go ahead and grab our olive colored piece here. This is the main door structure. I just cleaned off my glue tip, and I might have to kind of get used to the flow of it again, which is okay. Okay, so let's just get our glue. We'll start on the edge and then just work a few little dots on the interior. And with this, we're using the little diamond here. I'm using the little diamond visually to help me place this correctly the first time around so that we don't have to move it around too much. And if we get that aligned properly, everything else should pretty much fall into place as it has. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our little black piece down. And again, we've got these two little pieces here to use as a guide. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get my glue on here, nice and easy. And again, I'm just using the little cutouts there where the vellum shows through as a guide. If you get a little glue that shoots out, just rub it off before it sets. Okay, and last but not least, we have this piece here. I'm going to go ahead and nice and subtle. Nice and easy. If you've got some areas with a little too much, you can just kind of dab it with your finger. Okay, now this one, we just need to center this as best as we can over these designs here, over these cutouts, and that looks good. Okay, so we got a nice little creepy door there. Okay, so aside from putting a few embellishments on this, and then we've got a three-dimensional roof that's going to go on this, but I don't want to work on that while this is flat. I would rather do that while it's assembled. So the middle of the tower is pretty much done. We can just call it a day on that, and I'm just going to go ahead and fold these again, just kind of tuck them in and put this off to the side until we're ready to actually assemble all the pieces here, which we're not going to do just yet. So again, just make sure all your stuff's nice and folded. It's just going to be a lot easier to work with later on. Okay, and the front and the back are pretty much ready to go. I'm going to put that off to the side for now so that we can continue working on placing our panels on the rest of the pieces here. Okay, so what we can actually do while we're still somewhat focused on the center of the tower, this is the top of the center of the tower. So we want to go ahead and get all of our pieces here nice and creased. And we're going to put our panels on this here. And actually, you know what? I don't want to put the panels on this right now because this is going to be at a curve. We want to assemble this first and then we'll put the panels on it. So these panels here, I did distress these, and I'm just going to show you real quick here. Now this is already embossed. I embossed this with the Tim Holtz embossing folder. They're like bats, but they almost kind of look like shingles too. And so with some of the heavier inking, now normally I just kind of focus on the edge of whatever piece I'm working on, but in this case, with the Halloween stuff, as you'll see, this is a good example here. You can see that there's some areas where I actually brought my ink pad in towards the center and kind of just created a few lines here and there and added a little more pressure in some of the areas just to kind of throw it off a little bit. You know what I mean? So that it's not so consistent all the way around. So when you're inking your Halloween stuff, feel free to do that just to kind of create a little bit more interest in some of the areas. You can definitely be a little more generous, I guess would be the word, with your ink on the Halloween stuff. Okay, so anyway, these are the panels that are going to go on this center part. Let's just put that off to the side for now. Let's go ahead and continue with one of the sides here of the house as far as our panels go. Okay, so I'm going to grab, this is the right side of the house. Just make sure you have all of your R's. Now, because this is symmetrical, even if it's not, when we're putting the panels down, it shouldn't matter all that much. Okay, so anyway, this is one side of the house here, and we do have this little area here. That's not going to get a panel, but these sides here, or these windows here, are going to get panels. Okay, so you want to go ahead and put your panels down like that. And also, one thing to keep in mind here is this here. You want to make sure that you're aligning this correctly, okay? Because it is a little bit taller, or this piece isn't exactly centered. So put this piece down first, and then put this piece down, and make sure that you have a little bit of border right here. And if you don't, flip it over like that, and then put this piece back, and you can see that there's more of a border there now than there was when I had it this way. And we want it this way so that there's a little bit of a border there between the two. Okay, now I think I ran my embossing folder through this piece the wrong way. So I have my shingles not going horizontally, but it's okay. It's a creepy house. Maybe the spook that was working on this was just having a bad day, or maybe they hired a unqualified siding person and they did it wrong. And that's okay. No one's really gonna be able to tell. Okay, so let's get these panels glued on. A lot of nice detail on this, but that's really, when it comes to paper projects, simple is fun, but creating a project like this with a lot of little details and a lot of inking and a lot of embossing gives your viewer more to look at. It's, that person that sees this, that you gift this to, or that you sell it to, or that admires it at one of your Halloween parties, or when they come and visit your home. They're gonna be able to stare at this thing for, not just a glance. They can spend minutes looking at all of the cool little details. And that's kind of what we're after here. So, all right, so we've got these panels on here. Now on the back here, we just have this panel here, okay, and that's going to be flush around that little hole there. Okay, so we want to go ahead and get our glue on this whole piece here. That part down there is a little fragile, but you also want to make sure that you're getting your glue out to the edge as well as you can. And then I'm looking at the bottom of this opening and then just kind of working my way around visually to make sure that I'm not encroaching over that cutout while also making sure that I'm aligning it exactly where it needs to be aligned. Okay, now this is the back. This is where your little tea light's going to go in. Okay, so that is that piece there. Okay, now this back part here also takes one of these pieces like this. Okay, but we're not actually going to put that on right now because this little part kind of dangles off, and I don't want to damage that while we're assembling all this. So I'm not going to worry about this piece until this thing's mostly assembled now. Okay. So with that said, we can go ahead and start putting the actual overlays on our windows here. Okay, so for this little window here, we're getting this little black window. Okay, and I'm just going to put little dots of glue around the perimeter of this thing here. And just follow that little intersection there. Make sure that you've got that nice and aligned, and just push down. Okay, so that's that window. And then we have a nice little circular one up here, just like that. Okay, so go ahead and flip that over. Okay, and just as a reminder here, we're working on the right side of the haunted house right now. This process is going to be exactly the same for the left side, but I'm going to walk you through it all just so that we don't miss anything at all. I want all of your projects to look perfect first time around. I want this to be enjoyable. Okay, so just push and hold that down for just a few seconds. Get that to stay. Okay, and there it is. All right, and then we have this little piece here that's going to get glued around this part here. This section here does not have a panel. We're going to let the actual color of the house show through there without any embossing or anything. Okay, now I just know that was a little too much there. And again, just make sure that you hug that little oval and that you're not obstructing the cutout just above it. Okay, and that's how you know you've got it precisely in the right place. Here we go. Okay, and one section here is done. Now we can move on to this part here. Now this is the section that creates our roof, and then this is the little dormer window there. Okay, and we're going to take this piece here. This is our little siding piece for this section here. That's going to go just like that. All right, so let's go ahead and get this panel glued down. Now you can totally just tag along with me here. And again, I think the best thing to do when you're first starting this project is to just go through and kind of do it like an assembly line. What I did was I inked everything first, and then I embossed all my pieces, and now we're assembling. And I didn't want to show you the inking in its totality. I didn't want to show you the embossing because it's very repetitive. I'm sure a lot of you have already embossed a ton of things in your lifetime, so you're familiar with the process. If you're not, just go on Google or YouTube and just do a search for embossing paper projects, and you'll understand what I did. We will have a link to all of the embossing folders that we used on this project. Okay, there we go. All right, so there is our first little siding piece there. okay? And again, we do have these little trim pieces here. That one goes on the back. This one here goes on the front. We're not going to put this down right now because, again, it's got this little dangly piece, and I don't want to risk creasing that, so I'm going to leave that be. But for this here, we do have a little overlay piece, okay? And these little windows here actually have two pieces because we created some little shutters for this. You don't want to glue the shutters down, so all we're going to do is put glue on the back of this. Okay, let me get a little more on that side there. And just make sure that you're matching this up correctly and precisely with the little 2x4s, that these little pieces of wood here that are keeping intruders out of our haunted house. And do not glue down the shutters. You want to leave those so that they stick out. That makes them more interesting. And I'm going to grab my little ink pad, and I'm going to distress the edge of this just a little bit. Could probably get a little wild with this. Who am I kidding? It's Halloween. Just kind of, just like that. And we'll go ahead and get our glue on the back of this. And got a little bit too much glue in this little area here. I'm just going to use my pick-me-up tool to pick me up a little bit. And just get that glued right in place. Overlay it nicely. Kind of get your finger in there if you got a little too much glue on that spot. And there we go. Okay, so that part is all in place, and I think that's pretty much it for this piece here, so we can put that off to the side. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at our little dormer windows here. We do have, with this one here, this panel is going to go on there like that. Okay, and then we have the little green part of the window that's going to go over that. And then we have little window sills that get glued right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start with that. And I don't have any embossing or inking on this piece. I didn't want to do it to everything. I wanted to create a little bit of contrast with the pieces here. Okay, and again, just kind of focusing on the center there, making sure that everything's nice and lined up. Here we go. That looks good. Just push down, make sure that gets a good grip. And then we're going to take our little olive color here. It's just kind of like a little puzzle, but you don't have to like sit there and stare at all the pieces. They all have their place, and I'm showing you where everything goes one at a time, systematically. There's no way you can fail at this. As long as your machine cuts all the pieces out, I guarantee you can put this together, okay? And now this little piece here, I'm gonna ink this a little bit too, just a touch. Just because I like that look along the edges. It just looks nice and crisp. I don't want to distress it too much. I'm just gonna, just a little bit of ink. Okay. Get that in place. And just glue that right to the bottom there. Make sure it's nice and lined up. Here we go. Okay. So we'll be assembling that in a little bit here. But as far as the vellum and the overlays and the panels, that's it for that. Now this is the bottom here, so obviously nothing goes there, but we do have a little overlay piece as far as the panel goes. So that panel is going to go there, and then we also have an overlay that goes on top of that to kind of give the illusion of the windows kind of sticking out a little bit, like actual wood. Okay, So just go ahead and get your glue on all the little nooks and crannies here. Lay this down flat and just follow all the cutouts. Make sure you're not obstructing any of them and just push down. Okay, here we go. That looks cool. And this is a crackle embossing folder by Doris. And then we've got these 3 windows that are going to go on top of that. And I am just going to ink these a little bit. Again, just nice and subtle. Right along the edge. Just want it to look nice and crisp. I'm not going to distress. I'm just going to ink. I guess I'm sort of accidentally giving it a very tiny, tiny, tiny distressed sort of look. But it's nothing like what you see here as far as the distress work goes. So just very subtle on this. I just want it to kind of stand out a little more. Okay, so we're going to flip this over and go ahead and just use little dots. Try to get them out to the edges as close as you can. I can't wait to see this thing all lit up. The only thing that we've seen so far is a prototype of this thing. And when we make our prototypes, we use well, like scrap paper. We don't use our best paper to make prototypes. So we know what the structure is going to look like. And based on Ron's sketches, we kind of know what... Okay, so then we have the little windowsill section here. I'm going to go ahead and flip that over. Now this is black, so obviously you really can't ink anything with the black because there's nothing that's really going to stand out. I mean, you can try to ink it with black, but it's not going to do much. Okay, so we get that in place, and there's the bottom windows there, all ready to go here. So that part's ready. And then we have the little interior part here, and this does not have a panel, but we do put a little bit of trim around the window. So go ahead and flip that over, get your glue into as many of the little nooks and crannies here. Okay. And again, just make sure you're hugging the little ellipse and that you're not obstructing that miniature little cutout at the top there. Okay. All right, so that's pretty much it for the first side. We've got the center of the tower done. Okay, so we're literally going to repeat the same process with the left side of the tower. Okay, these are roof pieces. There's nothing that you really need to do with those. I'll show you when we are going to use them. So grab the rest of your panels. We're almost done with our panels here. We're going to be putting this thing together here in just a moment, once we get all this stuff taken care of here. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the left side of our haunted house. And again, this is pretty much exactly like the right side of the house. So we're going to take this piece on our little dormer window here and get our glue on this piece here. And get that in place. Just a little more on the little up to the edges there. And just match that up with the little details on the inner part of the window there. Make sure that you've got that nice and aligned so you're not obstructing the actual vellum cutouts. Okay, and just like we did with the other side, we're going to grab this, in this case for us, we did it in a olive green color here. So we're going to get that down. Okay, and I guess there's no harm in doing this twice for you guys. Again, just want to make sure that you get it right, and may as well just put the whole thing together with you so we don't miss out on any steps here. Okay, And last but not least, we have that little windowsill piece. And I did already ink that as well. So we're going to get our glue on there. And just get that in place right over that area there. Okay, so that piece is pretty much ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and put that off to the side. And now, since we've already done this once, you can use the other one that you did as kind of a reference to help you get it put together. Okay, so just like we did the first time, we're going to grab this piece that we embossed and inked with our little Crackle embossing folder by Doris. This one is still readily available, and we're going to have a link to the listing on Amazon for those of you that use Prime. I may have actually, every once in a while Joanne has sales on the Doris embossing folders. I think it's like 5 for $10 or something like that. When I see that, I always try to get 5 embossing folders that I think I will end up using. Now, I did have a little bit of glue right there in the center there that I kind of went a little overboard with, but I'm going to let that dry instead of trying to smear it and fixing it. I don't think I'm going to be able to fix it very well. Okay, so just like we did the first time, I'm going to grab our little window overlay piece, and I already have ink on this. Again, I'm doing this, just going very subtle with this ink here on this little window portion, so I don't need to re-ink it or re-dab it. I think what I have on there is plenty, just very subtle, mostly just to get those nice crisp lines on the edges. I think that's one of my favorite things. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and dot this, especially out towards the edges. Get a little bit there in the details and get that nice and aligned. And just push that down. Just make sure that you do in fact have it nice and perfectly aligned. Okay, and I'll push that down. Then we just have to find our little windowsill piece here and get a little bit of glue on that. There we go. Get that glued in place. There we go. Okay, so that part's done. I can put that off to the side. Now this piece here, again, we've got this large area here. Okay, take a look at my other one, and that looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue on the back of this. And again, this was this embossing folder, I think it's by Cuttlebug, by Provocraft, and I'm pretty sure it's discontinued. But it's a good one to have for Halloween because it just looks really, really beat up. If you have it, which I'm sure a lot of you do, because I know we all collect. I've probably had 2 or 3 of these over the years, and pretty sure I lost one of them. So I did end up getting one on Amazon recently, but it cost me a pretty penny because they're no longer in production. So people are charging a premium for these. I don't even want to admit how much I paid for it because you guys would think I'm crazy. But a good embossing folder is a good embossing folder. So, all right, again, we've got this piece here with the little shutters. You don't want to put glue on the shutters. Okay, you want to just put it on the back of the window itself. Get that aligned with the little 2x4s or little wood boards. Okay, and then we find our little overlay piece. There is it. Oh, and you know what? I forgot. There's actually one other piece that goes on top of this piece. And I do want to ink this a little bit. Just real subtle. Mostly for those lines. There's a little windowsill piece that I forgot to put on the bottom of this. I was kind of looking at it and I was like, well, you know, that kind of looks like it could use a little pop of color at the bottom, and sure enough, it has it. I just didn't put it down. So we'll do that, and we'll go back to the previous piece as well and get that fixed so that we're all on the same page here. Okay, so just get that nice and centered on there. There we go. And this is the little piece that I had missing. And I'm going to throw a little ink on just the edges of this as well, just to kind of keep it consistent. We have like 99% of this thing inked. I don't want to leave any stone unturned here. Okay, so this little piece that I'm putting down, we're going to have to go back to our other side and get that in place on the other one as well, because I forgot to do that. Okay, so there we go. And let's grab the other one that we neglected. Okay, so I found my other piece here. Just gonna hit it with a little bit of ink. And wouldn't you know, it was just sitting on the ground right by my feet. You'd think for sure that if you lost a little piece like this, the thing would be gone, but I typically keep everything in one little area. So it couldn't have gotten far unless it grew some legs and just decided to run out on me, which it didn't. So, okay. This is the right side. So I'm going to put that back. Okay. So we've got this piece all done. We can move along here to, well, looks like we've got just this back part here. So again, we've got this piece here. And let me just show you again some of the inking and distressing that I did on this. Let me get this out of the way. Now, when I initially dab this thing, I try not to dab too much, but if I notice that it's like really thick on there, I'll actually rub some off on just a scrap piece of paper so that I don't get way too much on there. And again, with this, so instead of just hitting the edge, I'm actually running it along the surface, and then wherever I put my finger underneath and apply pressure, you're gonna get a lot more ink in those areas. Okay, so I'm actually like bringing it in, and sometimes a little bit softer, sometimes a little bit deeper, and just really bringing it in a lot more just to kind of make it look much more distressed and just random. And now this is the back, so not a lot of people are going to see this, but I think it was a perfect opportunity and perfect piece to kind of demonstrate what I mean by, you know, going a little bit heavier on the ink when it comes to the Halloween stuff. And, you know, by all means, you can do that with any project. I just choose not to. Oops. Okay, so we're going to get this panel on, and then we'll get the other panels on for the side, and then we're going to be getting pretty close here to actually assembling this thing. Okay, so I'm using the little cutout here as a visual guide for placement of this piece. Just making sure that I've got it lined up as best as I possibly can. And just press down, smooth it out. Okay. All right. Okay, so back to this piece here. Now, as I mentioned before, as you're putting this piece down, just make sure that you have it right so that you have a nice little border there. If you flip it one way or the other, you'll have a more prominent border there, and that is the correct method. Okay, that's the correct layout for this. Not this way, because this way there's almost a non-existent border. So you want to go this way to ensure that you do have a border there. Okay, so when I say border, the border between these two panels that we're putting on, it's about, I'd say, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch maybe, if I had to guess. All right, so let's get that glued down. Just follow those little crosses on the window there. Make sure you've got it nice and aligned. And just push down, get that in place. And let's do the bottom. Okay. And get that nice and aligned. Just like that. Push down. Hold that in place. Now while we're here, you can go ahead and put this little trim piece on our little lonely little window here. Okay. And just make sure that you're not obstructing that little tiny cutout at the top there. Try to get that to hug the, I had a little too much glue on there, but I'm just kind of rubbing it off. And that looks good. Okay, which leaves just the overlays. And these are the black trim pieces that go on here. We've got one circular one and then one that looks like this. Okay, so we can go ahead and get those glued into place. I'm just going to use little dots here so that it doesn't come squirting out all over the place. Okay, get that nice and lined up with that cross there. And just push down, get a nice grip. Okay, and the bottom one here, just going to dot that. And again, you can feel free to kind of fast forward through this, because again, this is just repeating what we did on the right side of the house. So if you're getting bored watching this twice, just fast forward to the next part. A lot of this, if you kind of just look at it and stare at it, it's pretty self-explanatory. So, all right, so for this little window here, all we're doing is putting this piece on. Again, this is, there's no embossing or inking or panels or anything on this little piece here, so you need not worry. And just go ahead and get that right on there. Make sure you're not obstructing that little cutout for the vellum. And for some reason, I get a little sloppy with this window. But again, with the Scotch Quick Dry, just kind of rub it off. Rub off any glue that may have squirted out, and it'll look just fine. Okay. All right, so let's get these pieces together so we don't lose anything. Okay, this is my left, and this is also my left. Keep all the pieces kind of together and coordinated. Okay, so at this point, we're getting pretty close to pretty close to assembling this thing. There's a few other little prep pieces that I want to do beforehand, and then we can go ahead and start really assembling this thing. One thing I want to do is get our base together. Okay, now we have a little base here, and what we did was we actually we mounted this to some foam core, and then we just kind of cut around it. And we are also going to decorate it with some ribbon. So you're going to have your pieces out like this, okay, but they don't connect like this. They overlap, and there's one score line here where my finger is here. You may not be able to see it, and there's one here. And what you want to do is you want to keep your glue within that boundary, okay? And you also want to try to get some glue right out to that edge there without going over. And you're going to lay that down like so, making sure you don't encroach over that score mark. You want it butted up right next to it. Okay, so this is our little base. And then you'll notice that there's also a series of score marks that create this shape here. And that is for our little walkway here, which I've also distressed or inked and also embossed with like a stone. So it's like a stone walkway. I'm actually going to glue this on after I get my house down on this, just in case I'm a little bit off. But that's going to go together like that, so we can put that off to the side. Okay. And at this point, you know, we may as well begin assembling our structure here. There's probably two little things that we can put together. There are two little chimneys. So you know what, we can actually just go ahead and put those together. What I would like for you to do though is grab, these pieces are for the main tower. Okay, so just kind of keep those together. These pieces are for the gate, which we will put together later. We're going to want to kind of assemble, do a little pre-assembly on that. We've got these roof pieces and these roof pieces. We may as well just kind of go over this real quick. Now, I did ink all of these, and then took a dowel, and I did that with just one side so far, and just kind of curled these back, and I also inked the individual little shingles that are kind of coming off, okay? So I'll kind of show you how I did that. I'm going to curl these back. Give it as much as you can to really make them stick out. I'm using a 3/8 inch dowel. Actually, it may help to use a 1/4 inch dowel to make these curve even more and pull them out even more. Okay, so I'm just kind of wrapping it around the dowel, and that is kind of bringing them to life here. Okay, and I'm going to grab my ink pad and kind of dab it, get a little of the excess off, and just go ahead and ink these little shingles. Kind of give them a little life. Don't be afraid to go a little overboard with the inking on these. It's going to add a lot of interest to this piece. Okay. And I'm going to bring this ink in a little bit deeper, just to kind of make it look a little more spooky. And these holes here are for the little chimneys that we're going to mount to our structure once it's all in place. But we're going to put together the base of this thing first, then we're going to put the roof on, and then we're going to put our little chimney in place. And again, just kind of doing things systematically, step by step, until we got ourselves a really brilliant, awesome looking haunted house. You know, this is probably one of our more complex, but not from a technical standpoint, just kind of from a time standpoint projects, because of all the inking and all the little details, but it's totally worth it. You know, if you do a couple projects like this a year, this is that defining piece. As a crafter, you can put this together. People are going to be really wowed by this, especially if they love Halloween. They're probably going to be like, oh my, will you... Probably going to ask you if you'll make them one, and I don't know that I would, just because of the time requirements for it, but if you love them enough, maybe you'll do it. Okay, so that looks good, and then this is the roof part for the first floor there. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to curl these up. And these look like they kind of go together. I'm going to curl them up and get those inked as well. And as you can see, looking at this, you can tell that I've already inked the edges of this. Okay, so just ink the edge like I did, and then go around and ink each of the little shingles that's kind of lifted up. And that, supposedly, from what I've read, is how you know you need a new roof. So our haunted house hasn't really been taken care of very well. I'm sure Igor or whoever lives there is not the best handyman, but that's okay. All right, so just kind of wrapping this up here and kind of pulling this down a little bit so that this sticks out a little more, and then as I'm inking it, I'm less likely to get ink in places that I don't want to get it by just kind of bending that paper down a little bit, or just curving this whole thing actually. Okay, just get a little bit of ink on there. There we go, that should do it. Okay, so our roof's ready to go here. These two pieces here, we've embossed these with crackle. I've also inked these. These are the little roofs for our dormer windows. Okay, so just kind of getting the roofs ready here. Okay, so for this one here, this part up here with the three little triangles and the square, that is the top. The blue part's gonna go right on top of that. This part down here is a little funky, only because we need to glue this to the inside of our structure, and that's the best way to do it. So all we're gonna do in this case here is we're gonna take some glue and put some glue on this little tab here. Okay, just make sure that you get that glue all the way out to the edge there. And just go ahead and close this shape up and glue it to itself, making sure that you have it nice and perfectly aligned. You can actually flatten this out. Okay, you can do it flat and then just push down like so. Make sure that it gets a nice grip, and then fold it back out to create a box. Okay, and then what you want to do is you can take these three little triangles, fold them in, and we're going to put a little bit of glue on the triangles here. I'm just going to dab that and clean up any excess and just close that up with that little square piece and just hold that down. If you want, you can put that flat down on your table, take a little dowel and pop it in there and push down from the inside to get that to really stick. Okay, so it should look just like that. And then these pieces here, you're gonna flare these out after we actually stick it into the roof. So it's gonna be kind of like that, and these pieces are gonna get glued to the underside of the roof itself. Okay, so we've got that piece there. This is the other part of our chimney here. So all we want to do is fold this. As you can see, I do have it inked. We're going to put a little bit of glue on this little triangular tab and just glue that to the inside of its neighboring piece once everything is folded over. And just kind of hold that in place until it sets. In the meantime, you can take these I don't know, trapezoids, I don't know what you want to call them, these pieces, and just fold them in, and we can go ahead and put glue, clean off any excess, and push them in just a tad, and close this up. I'm going to bend this back first so it's easier to fold in. And just push that down and hold it down. And then we're going to put a little bit of glue right there and just pop that right into place. Okay, so the other chimney here, the main portion of the chimney is made up of these two parts here. Okay, now I've already inked one side here, and to ink this, I'm just kind of holding it creased and just running my pad along the actual crease itself and maybe just a little bit off to the side, just to kind of make that a little more interesting. And I'm being very generous with my ink here, because again, this is Halloween, so I'm not overly concerned about anything at all here. Okay, so what we're going to do now, this part here, this part gets glued to the inside of our house. Okay, and this part here connects to the other side like this. Okay, again, this part gets glued to the, it doesn't matter if you do that or that, it's pretty much the same thing. I'd probably do it this way, where this piece goes on the inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue on this piece here. I'm going to spread that out a little bit because I went a little bit too heavy on it, and just glue that to the inside like that. Okay, just make sure you get that nice and lined up. There we go. All right, and now these little numbers here, you see a 1, 2, a 3, and a little, what looks like a little square. That's a 4. Okay, so that, we're going to take this piece, okay, and we are going to glue it to itself. And we're going to close the top. And we're going to take those numbers and line them up with the sides on the bottom there, so that we're sure that we have it in the right place. So I'm just closing that up now. Okay, you can actually fold this flat. Push down flat to make sure that you get it nice and correct on there. Okay, so now you see here, we're going to be gluing these pieces to the inside of this piece, and we're going to just match up the numbers here. So there's our 4. Let me see if you can see that. Not really. Oh, there's the 1 there. You can kind of see the 1 there, and there's the 1 there. So that means that it goes in like this. Okay. So I'm just going to jam that in there like that. Just want to make sure that you have the numbers lined up properly. Okay, and then we're going to take these tabs and glue them to the inside of this other piece. Okay. Okay, so just starting with one of the tabs on the inside there, just put a little dot of glue on there and just push that up against the inner part of that piece there. And just push and hold that for a second until it dries, and then kind of move. It's going to be kind of tough to see in there. Now you can see it. That's the little tab. I'm putting tab between the glue and the inner wall of this piece here, and I'm just kind of pushing that into place. Okay, and then I'm going to get this last piece glued in. Just a little dab of glue. Make sure that you got that nice and aligned there. Just push and hold that. Just like that. And then we do have one more little piece here. Now, it may be difficult to get your finger in there. I'm using my little pick-me-up tool to, let's see if I can get enough light in there. I'm just lifting that tab up so I can get a little dab of glue in there, so I can glue that piece to the inner wall of this piece here. Okay, so there we go. And again, these pieces here are going to get glued to the inside of our little house here. So at this point, we can go ahead and fold these little triangular pieces over. Okay, I'm going to flare them out just a tiny bit, so as I push that square down, it has a little bit more surface area to grab onto. And that'll give us a nice little chimney there. All right, so just push that down. Just push and hold that down. And if you need to, you can flip this over onto a table, grab a little dowel and shove it in there to help push that down. Okay, and there we go, just like that. And then we can create the top of our chimney here. I'm going to go ahead and fold all of these little shapes over. I'm going to put glue on this little tab here. Just like that. Spread that out, clean off any excess, glue that to the underside of its neighbor. And again, you can actually fold this flat because it is symmetrical. And just push down, let that glue really adhere. Okay, and then open it up. Get our glue onto the tabs here. Spread that out a little bit. Clean off any excess and push them in just a tad and close this up. I'm going to bend this back first so it's easier to fold in. And just push that down and hold it down. You can put this flat on your table to really get it to stick. Okay, so there's our little chimney. Now if you want to, you can go in and ink the bottom of this a little bit. Make it look a little spookier. There we go. All right, and then we're going to put a little bit of glue right there and just pop that right into place. And just push and hold. Give it a good amount of force, not too much because you don't want to break the paper, but push and hold that together for about 15-20 seconds until it gets a nice good grip. And then our chimney will be nice and ready here. Okay, so let's put that off to the side and let's let that set. Okay, one last little piece here that we want to construct just to kind of get ready is this little piece here, this little overhang piece. Now, as you can see, I've kind of already done some distressing on it, so you want to go ahead and fold everything at the score marks, okay, and create this shape here. And what we're going to do is we're going to, first off, we're going to put glue on this little triangular piece here to connect the two sides together. Get that little stray piece of glue off, so just join that up nicely. Okay, and hold that in place until it sets. You can get your little finger in there. Okay, and then all that's left to do then is close this piece up. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to close the bottom up. There are two little triangular tabs on the bottom here. So we want to go ahead and get those glued. And we'll close this up down here first. Just like that. And just like that. So you can kind of hold it between both your fingers here like that until it's partially set. Then you can put it down on your surface and push down. I always like to use my table whenever possible. Okay, so we've got a shape like that. And then you can go ahead and put glue on this piece here. This is going to be on the back, so no one's really going to see this part, but you still want to try to do a nice job there and just close that off. Try to get it nice and perfectly aligned. just like that. Okay. There we go. Now this is going to have a nice little overlay piece, so even if you don't get this perfect, it's okay. And another thing you can do to clean up any imperfections is hit this with some ink, and that'll make it look even more seamless, like you did a perfect job. So you really can't go wrong with that. And I think this has a black overlay on it, so I don't think this is actually necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so that piece is ready. And now if you look at this piece, you notice that one side is completely flush and one side kind of angles in a little bit. The side that's completely flush is the side that's going to go against your house. This side kind of has a little bit of an angle to it and won't stick to the house because it's not flush. So just keep that in mind when we get ready to apply this piece. Okay. And actually, while we have this piece like this, we can go ahead and get this little piece on here. Okay, so I can go ahead and just put glue. And again, keep in mind which side is the flush side. Okay, this is the flush side. That's going to go against the house. So I'm going to put my glue on this side. I might have gone a little overboard with the glue, but that's okay. And I'm just going to get that right on there. I'm going to end up putting a nice little rhinestone or something on our bat up here just to kind of make him a little more interesting. Okay, but that's what that should look like. Just like that. Make sure that you got this lined up properly so you're not covering the little cutouts there. And just squeeze between your fingers just to ensure that you've got that in the right place. Okay, so pre-prep on that is done. I'm going to go ahead and say that we are pretty much ready to start putting this thing together. So with that said, let's start with the center tower. Okay. All right, so this is the top of the tower along with the panels, and this is the top of it. We're going to leave that alone. You also want to find this little black piece, and there should be one more. Actually, no. This is the little black piece that you need for the top. So put that off to the side. These are the only pieces that we're going to need right now. These two pieces and this piece here. Okay, so let's go ahead and put these side by side, like so. And we're going to go ahead and put glue on this tab here. It's a nice big tab, but you don't want to go too crazy with the glue. You know, you're probably tempted to load this thing up with a ton of glue, but it will probably warp the paper, so don't do that. And then work a nice line right out to the edge, all the way up and down the edge. And you can kind of crease it like this, and I'm going to go ahead and spread that out with my finger. Make sure that I get that nice and out to the edge. Okay, and then we want to line this up. Make sure that the top is nice and flush, that the bottom is nice and flush, and you want it butted up right up to that score mark, and just push that down. Wipe off any excess glue. You can actually go ahead and fold this in half now and push down like that, just to make sure that you get a nice hold there. Okay. Just like that. All right, should be a nice seam. It looks really good. And now, go ahead and fold this tab over and get our glue all along this tab here. And work that glue out to the edge. Okay, and spread that nice and thin. As close to, if not right up to the edge if possible. Okay, lay that down flat, fold this piece over. It should line up perfectly. Okay, and even if it doesn't line up perfectly, we've got a little tower. It's going to go right over the top of that, and that's going to kind of clean that up for us anyway, so totally fine. Okay, nice clean seam. Our center tower is pretty much put together. Okay, you can go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to put our bottom on this now. So grab one of these two pieces, the one that does not have the little M on it. There's one with an M. That is a liner piece that's going to go inside for added stability. Okay, now the front of this is always the part that we're going to be looking at the most. So we're going to start by gluing the bottom to the frontmost tab. And I do want to get some glue right up to the edge here, and because there's another piece already there, I'm going to use my pick-me-up tool to just smear a little bit of glue right along that edge there. Just kind of painting it on. A little goes a long way. That's fine. It's probably not as precise as I wanted it, but that will work. So go ahead and get that nice and centered there. Okay, just like that. And once it's partially set, you can flip it over and push down like that. Okay, and then go ahead and flip this, and let's get some glue on this tab here. Flip it, glue on this tab. This is going to be on the bottom. No one's going to see this. You can go a little bit heavier. Now the reason I can flip this all the way over is because this tab here is at an angle, so it's not really touching my surface. So this allows me to leverage my table and use it to my advantage. I just got glue on my forearm. I'm going to smear that nice and thin out to the edge. Same with this. And this one too. Okay, and now we can go ahead and take this flap and close this up. Make sure that you've got it nice and aligned, and then run your fingers along the edges here and push. Make sure you've got it centered. There we go. And don't worry if you don't get it perfect the first time. You can always go in and clean it up. I'm going to put this flat on my surface, and I'm going to stick my dowel inside. You can stick your hand in there too. It's wide enough. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so our bottom looks perfect. And then you go ahead and stick a little bit of glue on the tabs on the inside, and just drop your liner in there to make that a little more sturdy. Okay. All right, so our center tower is pretty much complete here, with the exception of the top of the tower, which is what we'll do next. Grab these pieces here, and I'm going to take my 3/8 inch dowel and just slightly, very, very slightly, give these a curl, because they are going to be angled, and this will help your cause and make it a lot easier to work with these pieces. Now you always want to make sure that you fold everything at the score marks before you get started here. Okay, just like that. Okay, and next thing we need to do is connect these pieces together. Okay, and we're going to do that pretty much one tab at a time here. So we're going to put glue. It doesn't matter which one you start with, they're all identical pieces. Just going to go ahead and put glue on there. Get it right up to the edge if you can. And make sure that the top is perfectly aligned, and just glue that right next to the neighboring piece. Try to kind of visualize the angle and just squeeze that between your fingers. And you can kind of see the light shining through that top window there from my studio. It looks really cool. Okay. And you can kind of flip this over and get our glue on the next tab here. Spread that out. And get that next piece glued. Okay, now this part here is going to get a little repetitive because once we glue this, we're going to grab the next one and connect it to its neighbor. So that part there, it's going to get a little repetitive. I may not have to show you how to do this 4 times because all you're doing is just kind of connecting each side to the next side. While when you do this, just make sure that you're kind of curving this a little bit so that these angles meet up nicely. You just want to make sure that this is a nice clean seam here, that everything lines up nicely. Just take your time, 1 tab at a time. I wouldn't do more than 1 because you're just kind of risk throwing off the whole just the whole aesthetic and the whole curve. I think it's easier just to work with 1 tab at a time. I know some people, some of our fans that I've actually talked to on the phone, sometimes they ask me why I don't use tape. And I don't like the longevity of it. Maybe the ones that I've used just don't, maybe they're not designed to withstand the test of time. Glue has never really failed me. It like hardens and becomes part of the paper, where the tape, depending on humidity and conditions, it does come apart. I think with tape, this might go a little bit faster, but even when I've tried to work with tape on curves like this, I don't always get the right curvature because I don't get to finesse and feel every little tab and its angle. Okay, so I'm just working my way down the row here, just doing my best just to make sure that I'm following that curve. These 2 sides should just kind of meet, and you should just be able to feel and see the nice angle there. Okay, so just squeeze that between your fingers, give that a chance to set, and then we've got 1 left here. I'm just going to go ahead and put glue on the bottom of that. And again, just feeling that natural curve there. That is really good. That came out nice and exact and precise. And now this little lip here, it's actually going to curve inward a tiny little bit at a very, very slight angle. And you'll see why here in just a little bit. Okay, so that's that. And that just leaves this little triangle here to connect that little lip. Okay, so we want to go ahead and get our glue on that little triangle there. Spread that out if you can. And you can see that it's not straight. It kind of curves in a tiny little bit, so make sure that you're following that curve. You see that? See how it's not straight? It does curve in a tiny little bit. So make sure you preserve that and get it right. Okay, perfect. All right, so we've got pretty much half of this thing assembled. And again, all we're gonna do is take the next piece and just connect it just like we did the first time. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and walk you through this again. And then all that's going to be left to do is just connect this and close it up. We'll have our little tower, or the top of the tower. And then we've got some really cool decorative elements that go on top of that. So this one here, just make sure that you're getting that nice and lined up at the top. Okay, hold it like that. Squeeze it between your fingers there. Get it in place. Okay, and we can open this up a little bit and Get glue on the next tab. Just really easy on the glue on this. You don't need a lot. The more you put on here, the longer you're gonna have to wait for it to dry, and the more likely you are to make a mess. So try to be very gentle with the glue there. Okay, and just hold that between your fingers and get it nice and connected, like that. This thing's gonna look really awesome when it's all done. Okay. And moving on to the next little triangle in here. Just very thin lines of glue. And then you can actually use the nozzle to move some of the glue around without squeezing out more. Okay, so that always helps. If you accidentally shoot out too much initially, you can stop pressing on the bottle and just use the tip to kind of move it around into some of the other places that may not have gotten any, or may have just gotten a little bit of glue. Okay, so we're gonna keep on cruising here. I think after this one here, you kind of get the idea. I'm just gonna take this last piece here, get that connected, and then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna close this up using the same exact method to finish this piece up. Okay, just make sure that you're getting that real nice curve there. Okay, you can see how nice that curve is. There we go. I'm excited to brag about this thing at my upcoming Halloween party. I think I'm gonna have this thing front and center on the food table. Maybe underneath some kind of a plastic thing so that I don't get any food on it. Or maybe on the mantle. I still haven't decided. But just going down the line here, just connecting these side by side, following that curve. Okay, so far so good. I've got one more main tab left here. You can see there. Getting that glue on there. Try to get it out to the edge. That's perfect. And get that nice and connected. Here we go. And we're going to close it up. I have to stick this little triangular tab in there. Get a little bit of glue on that bottom triangular tab of the lip. Get it out to the edge. Okay, so I just glued this little triangular tab here, ensuring that I have the correct angle. As you can see, it's kind of curving in or caving inward. And that just leaves this last piece here, and then we just gotta join it all together here in just a second. So let's go ahead and get our glue on this tab here. And get that nice and aligned at the top. Nudge that in a little bit. Just make sure that you're getting the correct angle there. There we go. My fingers are really taking a beating with all the inking. As you can see, I've got ink all over it. I've got glue. But this is my kind of mess. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and fold in that triangular tab there and get our glue right on that tab. Inch a little bit out to the edge. And again, do our best to follow that curve. Okay. There we go. Just hold that in place until it sets. I think the more you squeeze, the more it really penetrates the fibers of the paper, the quicker it will set. Okay, you can see that little tab there that I just brought out. Getting my glue on there, smearing a little bit out to the edge. I'm going to continue to work from the top here. It's a little bit easier. And as we get more than halfway, I'm going to probably work from the bottom as far as getting my finger in there. Okay. Just get that piece in there. I think that has pretty much set. All right, grab my next little triangular tab here. Some glue on that. I think this is probably the last hard part tedious, I should say, not hard, just tedious. Just got to take your time with this. If you want to get it right and you want it to look perfect, don't rush. Enjoy the process. I think there's a quote out there where it's not the destination, it's the journey. So find your zen. There's that little tab there. Find your little inner peace. Just relax. Have fun with it. Half the battle is finding time to do this. If you can find time to make this haunted house, I would say that life is good. Because not only do you have some time to yourself to work on crafts, but you've got a cutting machine, you've got paper, you've got all this stuff. I think it's safe to say you've won the human lottery and life is good. Okay, so just get that last little piece in place there, hold it until it's fully set. Make sure you're following that nice angle there. Okay, and then, just as we did 2 times already, we're going to grab this little triangular piece and get our glue on that. Right out to the edge. And again, this kind of caves in or curves in a little bit, or angles in, I should say. Make sure that you're maintaining that nice angle there. And my finger has got some glue on it there. I'm going to try to rub that off so it doesn't stick. Okay. All right, now just need to close this piece up. Now this is going to be a little more difficult because I'm not going to be able to peel this open as easily, but still going to get it done and it'll be flawless. So go ahead and get your glue on the first little triangular tab here and close that up. You've got it nice and aligned, and just squeeze about any of the excess glue that might be coming out. Okay, and again, this is where it's a little more challenging. And what you can do, if you have a little pick-me-up tool, you can use that to get your tabs folded over. Will make it a lot easier for you. Sometimes it's hard to get your fingers into those little nooks and crannies, but this little surface or the opening in here is big enough for you to get your finger in there. And it's kind of hard for me to show you what's happening in there, but nothing much different than what we've been doing. It's just tight quarters in there now. So you gotta kind of get your head in there and make sure that you're getting your glue on those tabs, and that looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to peel back my next tab, get my glue bottle in there. You can kind of see that, sort of, maybe at this angle. Okay, just get your glue on that tab, just like we have been. And I'm going to go in from the bottom at this point. It's going to be a lot easier. The opening is a lot bigger there at the bottom, so. Okay, just pushing in, getting that nice and glued. I think that's pretty much set. Peel that back, get my glue, and now since we're towards the opening here, it's a lot easier to see. So we should be in a good place right now. Let me get this triangular bottom tab in. Okay, again, just make sure you're following that natural curve there. And just squeeze that in place. Just press and hold until it grips. And that should be good. Peel that back a little bit. And you can kind of see that tab there. Just getting glue on that tab. And getting that glued in. Hold that in place. floor and then the bottom piece, and pretty much done here with this as far as the structure goes. We've got the little roof panels that we've embossed with our Tim Holtz bat embossing folder, which I will have linked to in the supply list section, which is located underneath the product image. For those of you that don't know, we do list all of the supplies that we use, including the paper color and the number of sheets that you need and all that good stuff. So, all right, so we're just going to join this bottom piece and get that all in place here. Just a little bit of glue on that piece out to the edge. Again, trying to maintain that angle, because it does angle in a little bit. Just squeeze that in place. And there we go. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to grab this piece here, okay, and take a look and decide which piece looks the best from the front, or which side looks the best from the front. And for me, I think it's this side here, so I'm going to make this the front of it. So I'm going to start with this side here as far as putting the top on, and move these out of the way and spread that out to the edge. Okay, now that is a little too much there. There's another piece that goes over that, so don't need to worry if it warps the paper, if I get like too much glue on there or something, but get that nice and aligned. This is a symmetrical piece as far as the geometry goes, so it doesn't matter which side you use. Okay, just get that in place. Rub off any excess glue that you may have gotten on there. Push that down. Put that down on your table if you need to. Okay, and then you can go ahead and close this shape up now. And fold these tabs in. Okay, and let's get our glue on these tabs here. And work a little bit out to the edge. Spread that nice and thin. Wipe off any excess. Flare these out a little bit so that as I'm pushing down, grab some more surface area and just run your finger along the edge. Like that. And you might have to kind of shimmy the sides in a little bit just to make sure that you've got it nice and perfectly aligned. Okay, so we have a little tower here. Whoops. And that should fit perfectly. Should give you a nice little distance from the top of that window. All is well. And at this point, what we can go ahead and do is we can put the little panels on the side as far as the shingles go. I'm still trying to rub this glue off my finger. Looks like I got a ton of it on there. Okay, so here are the panels. They're going to go on just like this. Okay, so you don't even need to curve this. It's a very subtle curve, so we don't need to train it. It should stay in place nicely for us. Let's just make sure that we get our glue out to the edge as well as we can. And then just get this on there, try to center it so that there's a nice even border going all the way around. Okay, just like that. And just kind of squeeze in the various places, especially out towards the perimeter. Just like that. That looks really cool. Grab your next one. And get your glue on there. Work some out to the edge. There we go. And again, just make sure you got a nice even border all the way around. I don't think the eye is capable of really looking at all four sides at the same time, so even if you're a little bit off from side to side, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so there's that. Grab the next one, put that on there, and then we're going to put our little accent pieces little embellishments and the little fence that goes on there. I'm gonna do that next. That's actually pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's get this piece on here. Just like that. And a little glue that came off there, that's okay. All right. There we go. Last but not least. Just very lightly squeezing on the bottle here. Okay. Just a tiny little bit. And get that right on there. Kind of shimmy it around a little bit. Wipe off any excess glue. Okay. So we've got our panels on. That looks good. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and grab the two sections of the fence here. Let's go ahead and put the bottom on first and then put the top on. Okay, so what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna score this, or not score it, just fold it at the score marks here. There's some score marks here as well. Do the same thing here. Fold this in on itself. Okay, and we are going to join these two pieces together like so. So at this little crease here, I'm going to go ahead and put glue on that. Okay, and I'm going to spread that nice and thin. You can go ahead and lay this flat and just match that up perfectly. Just like that. There we go. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to glue this to the side of the house like this, or the side at the top of the tower. Okay, and we don't want to connect this just yet. Well, actually, you know what? No, let's not connect it just yet. Let's just wait. Let's get these sides on first. I'm going to start over here like this. Okay, so you can actually don't put glue all the way out to the edge of this. We're going to end up lifting that up a little bit. And you don't need to put glue on the actual fence itself. Just put glue on the black part. Just a little bit of glue. You don't need a lot. And you don't have to worry about getting it out to the edges. Okay, so just lay that nice and flat right on there so it matches up with that little lip. Kind of scooch it over a little bit until you've got it at the right angle, in the right position. Okay, and then you can go ahead and put glue on this little section here. And just get that glued into place. Make sure you've got that nice and lined up. You can just run your finger along the bottom of this to ensure that it's nice and flush. Okay, just squeeze, get that in place. Put this piece back down on your table. A little more glue. And get that in place. Again, just kind of running your finger along the bottom here, just to ensure that it's nice and flush. Okay. And now remember this part here that we didn't glue down, we're going to end up tucking this in and gluing that in like that, just so that it's nice and seamless. Okay, so you can go ahead and put glue here, and then just put a little bit of glue in this piece here. I went a little overboard there. Okay, tuck that under. Oops, what am I doing? There we go. Had that in the wrong place. And there we go. Again, just kind of running my fingers along this edge here, making sure that it's nice and flush. And then I'm going to go ahead and squeeze here where I had my glue, just to make sure that that is nice and connected. All right, and there we go. Okay, so that is all in place. Now we've got this piece here, the little top fence, and you want to go ahead and fold this at the little score marks here. And I'd probably use my table to do that to ensure a nice fold. Okay, this part is going to overlap a little bit onto itself. Okay, so just get that nice and creased. There we go. And then these pieces here. Okay, so what we want to do is connect these two sides together, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on just this little piece here. Kind of looks like a stick figure sitting down. It's kind of weird. Okay, so just overlay that, get that nice and in place. Okay. Just like that. And that should sit nice and flat. And what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on the bottom of this and then glue that to the top of the tower. There's some bats that we're going to put on a little bit of wire, and we're going to do that later. We're going to do that as the last step. Okay, so just pop that right on top. Just make sure that it's nice and flush with the edge on all four sides, and then push down and get that glued into place. Perfect. Super cool. Okay. So there we go. Got that. Now, this little part here, this is what we're going to put down when we're done. But you'll notice that there are two little X's cut into this, and that is to help us get our little wire through. We're going to put two bats up on there. Okay, so we're just going to feed the wire through these little holes. We're going to tape it to the surface here and then close that up so it looks nice and seamless and flush. Okay, but we're going to do that last, okay, because I don't want a bunch of bats dangling on this when we're trying to connect everything. Okay, so our center tower is pretty much complete here. Okay, so that is the center tower, and we can go ahead and begin working on one of the sides here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the left side of our haunted house here. We're going to take this piece here, and we're going to take this piece here, and we're going to connect these two pieces right here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get glue on this tab here. And we're basically putting together the bottom right now, but still want that to be nice and perfect if I can. So I'll put that down on my surface and get that nice and lined up, butting right up to the score mark. Not going over it, just right up to it. Okay, I'm just going to push down. Hold that in place for a few seconds while it dries. Okay, so that is the bottom as well as the front. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take and join this segment together like so. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to put glue on this tab here. Again, we're still working on the bottom. Put that out there, and I'm just going to spread that glue right out to the edge. Obviously, now I know why. I've got so much ink on my finger. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and use my table here and visually make sure that it's nice and aligned with that line. And I'm going to push the tab down. And I'm just going to push from the inside place. Okay. Perfect. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and angle this like this for now. I'm gonna grab the other side. Just keep looking and making sure that you've got the right piece. You wanna make sure that you got the L there. Okay, and we're gonna connect this side to this side here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put glue on this tab here. Get that glue out to the edge. And this is why it's super helpful to do all the little detail work ahead of time. Okay, I'm just going to line that up nicely, making sure that the bottom lines up precisely. I'm just going to fold that over and push down. Okay, take a look from this side here just to make sure that I've got it lined up right. And it's just a tiny bit off. So I'm going to redo that. Might actually help to do it from this angle instead of having it flat. For some reason it just kind of moved after I did that. So get that glue out to the edge. Okay, and let's try it again. Doing it from this angle instead. And I like that better because I can really see if it's nice and flush. And this time it is. So now once I have it partially set, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and push down from the inside. And let that set. Okay, that looks a lot better. Alright, now you can go ahead and now we're going to go ahead and bring this in and get this side nice and aligned as well as this side. I'm going to do one segment at a time here. So I'm going to go ahead and get glue on this tab here and work a little bit out to the edge. Spread that out. Okay, and again I'm going to put this flat on my table so that I can use my eye here to make sure that I am following that angle there that the floor is created. And just shimmy that in or out, or whatever you need to do to get that angle right. Okay. And just push down. All right, now go ahead and flare this out and get a little bit of glue on this tab here. And spread that out. There we go. Tuck that back in and under. And again, just using the floor of this thing to help me with the alignment of this wall, making sure that I've got that nice and lined up, and I do. So I'm just going to push down. There we go. Okay, so far so good. The floor looks great. Okay, and I would take this opportunity to kind of just crease anything with a score mark there. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to close up the front of our house here. So what we need to do is we need to put glue on these tabs here. And I get that glue out to the edge as usual. I went a little heavy with the glue here, so I'm just going to take that and spread it out to the edge because I don't want that front part to warp on me. So I'm just going to use my finger to thin that out a little bit. Clean off the excess. And we're going to close this up. Just do one side at a time, just to make sure that you get the alignments correct. You can put that down on your table in just a second here once it's mostly set. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that down on my table and just push down from the inside. There we go. Now, there are a few little areas there that I didn't get enough glue on, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my handy pick-me-up tool, throw a little fresh glue on there, and I'm just going to clean this up a little bit because I need this to be nice and sturdy. And I'm just going to pinch that and hold it until it's really nice and dry. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. As you can see there, despite the fact that I got a lot of glue on there, I didn't do a good job of getting it out to that edge there, and it's peeling off a little bit, but you don't have to worry about it. You can always go in and clean it up after the fact, and I really suggest that you do that. It's just going to make it look a lot nicer. And this part's kind of peeling up a little bit too, so I'm going to go in there and add a little extra glue there too. And just push and hold that in place until it's nice and set. Give that a few seconds to grip. Okay, now we're not going to put the roof on yet. We're going to glue this part down first. Okay, and then we're going to put our dormer window in, and then we're going to put our roof on. Okay, so first thing we want to do is get the very front of this glued in place. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this tab here and work that glue out to the edge. And clean up any excess there and get this positioned and glued into place. Just make sure that's nice and flush there and that you have it nice and centered. There we go. You can lift this up a little bit and just push from the inside like so. Okay, and then we're going to glue these two tabs in place here. I'm going to have to do these simultaneously, so it might be a little difficult to do one at a time without creasing this thing. So let's just do both sides at the same time here. Get that glue out to the edge. Wipe off any excess. All right, let's get that glued into place. You can stick your fingers through this little hole here and just work your way up and down until you get that in place. Oops. And then quickly move on over to the other side before that glue has a chance to really set, and get that nice and aligned and glued into place. Wipe up any excess, I should say, not access. Okay, and let that set. Now you can fold this down, and we're going to do both of these simultaneously as well. Okay, so get that glue right out to the edge as close as you can. Oops, I got it on the wrong side. That's okay though, because that side's going to be up against the center of, or the center tower, so no big deal there if you got a little glue that's shot out there. And I can already tell that this area is going to be problematic for me because I didn't get enough glue there. So I'm just going to add it while I can and get this part closed up. And just squeeze. You can stick your finger through here, get that in place, and then get the other side in place. Just like that. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so that just leaves the roof here and our dormer window, which we need to put together now. So again, this is still the left side here. So make sure that you grab the dormer window with the little L on here. And we're gonna put this thing together real quick. It's a very simple little piece. Okay, we're gonna put glue on this little tab here and get that glued to its neighbor. Here we go. And we can put that flat on our table and push down to make it set quicker. Rub off any excess glue. Let's move on to the next tab here. Okay, get that nice and out to the edge. Close that up. Okay. Now we're going to put glue on this tab here. And glue that in place, making sure that we've got that nice and lined up there. And you probably guessed these tabs here are going to get glued to the inside of our house. And actually, all of these pieces are going to get glued to the inside of our house, like so. So we want to fold these out just to kind of get them ready. And you can do it this way. We can pop it in through here. There we go. Just like that. Okay, and then we're gonna have to work from the inside here or from the bottom, whatever is more convenient for you. So as you can see, there's not a lot of light coming in here. You know what, let me see if I can light this up with my phone so you can actually see it better. Here we go. There you go. I don't know why I didn't do this before. Okay, so you see those tabs in there. Okay, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put glue on the underside here and push these flat up against our surface here. Okay, all these tabs need to be glued to the inside. So let me go ahead and just start here with one of them, and then I will show you my progress. Okay, so let me just get some glue on this. And I don't want to glob it on too much, you just need a little bit in there. And then just push it on there, just like that. Let me show you what that looks like from the inside. Okay, so you can see that tab. This tab right here is glued down to the inside, and we're just going to go all the way around all those tabs there and get those glued down as well. Just need a little bit of glue. You don't need much. You don't want to cake it on there because then it'll take forever to dry, and then you also risk some of it seeping through, and you don't want that. You just want it nice and flush up against here. Okay, these are it's gonna look really cool once it's done. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 2 more and then show you the results on the inside, and then there's 3 more at the bottom. Okay, so I'm working in this way now. I've got my hand in through the top, which is why we didn't put the roof on yet, so we can get our hands in there. Okay, and that glue just didn't stick for me, probably because my finger is so caked full of glue right now, it keeps pulling it off. Okay, but just be patient, let that set. Okay, and I will show you the results here in just a second. Okay, that looks like it took. Let me see, I got that one down. Nope, not yet. So I have 4 more little tabs in here. And I'll pause here in just a second to show you the result of what I'm doing. Okay. Again, this is, as long as you follow the instructions here, there's absolutely no reason why you can't do this. Okay, so let's light this up a little bit here so you can see. Okay, so you see that tab in there. Those 4 tabs there, those are all glued down to the inside. Now all that's left is these 3 tabs at the bottom there. Let's see if I can point to them. It's that one there, and then that one there. So we're just going to glue those in place as well. Just need a little bit of glue on there, not a lot. And stick your hand in there, and I'm gluing it to the underside of this little section here. So I'm applying force, downward force from the outside here to let that hold. Okay, and that just leaves 2 more little tabs there. Let me get my pick-me-up tool to lift that up. There we go. Just tiny little bits of glue. You don't need a lot. And shove your hand in there. Now I'm gluing this little tab here, and I'm putting force down here. And just being patient while that sets. Okay, and that just leaves 1 last tab here. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to that. And there we go. I'm just applying a down pressure here on this side because that's where that tab is on the underside. Okay, so you can kind of see the end result there. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can see the bottom ones there. Okay, so there is your window. And now we can go ahead and put our roof on here. Now this is the left side of our haunted house. And there's 2 pieces like this. Okay, these middle pieces are the same. This is the same except for these cutouts. Okay, the larger chimney is going to be on the right side of the house. So you don't want this right now. You want this piece. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do actually is we're going to put our little shingles on this piece. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get our glue on this piece like so. We've got to put the shingles on now because it might be a little bit harder later. And at this point, all we're doing is we're kind of looking at the little cutout for the chimney and just making sure that we're not obstructing it. Okay, so you want to just go ahead and get that on there like that. And then you can actually take the bottom of this and just roll it up with your dowel. Okay. All right, and you can grab the other side of this and get that glued into place. You want to make sure you grab the right one. Okay, so that's going to look like that. With this one here, we're just going to put the glue on the actual panel itself. I just realized that as you're putting that, putting the shingles on the other one, you may, if you don't do it strategically, you may end up getting glue in showing through some of the little cutout shingles, which is okay because it's going to dry clear, so it's not a big deal, but just be conscious of that. Okay, so there's our little roof. Now we're going to grab our little chimney and we're going to poke it through. Okay, we do want it to be vertical, so we're going to poke it through all the way. And I think I got to do it this way. Nope, do it the other way here. There we go. Oops. Just poke it through, and then we just have to glue all these tabs to the inside like so, so that when this is finally glued in place, it's nice and vertical. Okay, so go ahead and just put a few little dots of glue on the inside And glue that in place. And just work your way around the other tabs here. I'm actually putting it on the roof itself instead of the tabs. Doesn't matter either way. I feel like this way you're less likely to get bleed coming out from the sides. So this works for me. Just a little dot. And maybe just smear that out a little bit so you don't get too much. It doesn't bleed out. Okay, so there is our little chimney. Okay, now we're just going to pop that right on top. We're going to glue that down. And there is one side of our haunted house. We still have some shingles to put on there and some other little accent pieces. So a lot of little details in this, but I think it's worth it. It's going to look really cool. So let's go ahead and, let's start on this side because this side is completely flush. So we're going to go ahead and put our glue on this side here. Now we've got a little bit of overlap on here, so we don't have to work. Well, actually, no, not on this side. This side needs to be completely flush. So let's get that glue out to the edges. Let me peel this back a little bit. Get that nice and aligned. Okay, that looks good. We can flip this on our table, push down a little bit just to get a better hold. Just squeeze off any excess glue there. And just get your hand in there. Make sure that that sits nicely. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of this down. It's just half of it, half at a time here. We don't need to do the whole thing. Okay, so let's get our glue on these two tabs here. And spread that out to the edge. And get that in place, just like that. Hope you can see that. Get your hand in there nicely, and then line it up on the back as well. There we go. Beautiful. Let me shimmy that in a little bit. Okay, and then we're just gonna glue this to this side. This is an awkward shaped roof, but that's what makes it look spooky. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this up by getting our glue on these tabs here. And let's work it out to the edge. Okay, and flare these out a little bit so as we push down, it grabs more of that surface area. Just make sure that you've got it nice and aligned on all sides. And push that down. And let that dry. Okay, if you need to, you may be able to get your hand in there. Yep, you sure can. And just push from the inside to really get a good grip on that. And let that set. Okay, and there we go. I've got a little area here, again, that I'm not totally in love with. So I'm just gonna grab my pick-me-up and just kind of lift it up just a tiny little bit. Smear some glue in there and just push and hold that down and hold it down until it's done drying, just to make that nice and seamless. There we go. Okay, so You might want to give this a little bit more of a curl here. There you go. Maybe grab my 1/4 inch dowel, curve it a little more. There we go. Okay, so that is that. And at this point, what we can go ahead and do is grab our little shingle piece here, our roof piece, and just make sure that we're getting the right one here. I think that is the correct one. Let's take a look and see. I think these may be symmetrical actually, and they are. Okay, so it really doesn't matter which one you grab. Let's go ahead and get our glue onto this. Oops. And just feed it in there, right up to the edge there, where the fold or the angle starts to change direction, and just push that down into place. Okay, there we go. That looks nice. You can flare these up a little bit more if you want. Okay, and let that set so you can see what's starting to happen here. And we are going to glue all 3 of these together at the end to create one giant haunted house. Okay, there are a few more little details on this piece here. Let me move this over and get this over to the other side. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to put the little roof on here. Okay, so that's the roof for that. This little piece actually gets glued on first. Okay, so that's going to go on like that, and then the roof's going to go on, and then we're going to have a little bat that goes on top of that. Okay, so this little piece here, we're actually going to glue that to this piece here, the little roof piece, and then we're going to get that all glued together. Okay, so go ahead and using the center as a guide, kind of get that glued in place and push that out. Make sure it's right up to the edge there. Get that other side glued in place as well. Put a little bit of glue on that. Oops. That's going to be covered up, so no big deal if you get a little glue all over the place here. Okay, so get that glued just like that. Okay, then we're going to glue this to the roof, the top of the dormer window there. Then we're going to put our little black accent piece on this. So go ahead and put your glue on the bare roof here. Just kind of spread that out. Okay, let's get that on there nicely. Just kind of push down. There we go. Okay, and then we can follow that up with this little piece here. It's going to go right on the front like that. Okay, so go ahead and let me clean off this glue bottle. It's getting really cakey. Let's go ahead and put little dots all over this. And get that glued into place. Just like that. Oops. Just make sure you've got that nice and aligned with the curvature of that other piece there. Okay, so there you go. That is what that should look like. Got a nice little dormer window there. Okay, and again, you can kind of see where we're going with this. Okay, you just need to complete the other side here. Okay, so for the finishing touch on this, we have, and I actually already put them on, you can see them here, these little accent pieces. I'm just gonna put glue right up here. You don't wanna go up to this area here. You wanna keep it pretty much at and below the little diamond here. Get your glue on there. And then as you're putting this on, run your fingers along the edge of the roof here, just to make sure that you get that nice and aligned. So if you have any imperfections as you were putting the roof together, they'll be nice and hidden by that little accent piece. And then there's also one on the back that you want to do the same thing with. Okay, so that just leaves the right side of our haunted house. And it literally goes together the same exact way as the front, only that it just curves at a different angle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the process here, just because I want to be thorough, make sure that there's no confusion, and second time around we should be pros at this. So we're going to take this large piece and we're going to take this is the bottom, and we're going to get those glued together just like we did the first time. So let's go ahead and get our glue on this tab here, the one with the little R on it. Okay, I'm going to spread that out nice and thin, right up to the edge. Okay, and just go ahead and get that nice and aligned, butted up right against those little score marks. I'm going to push down and can kind of flip it over and push it down this way too, just to make sure that it really sets nicely. Okay, and just like we did the first time, you can go ahead and start connecting this like so. So we can go ahead and get glue on this really long tab here. Get a nice line in the center and then work a little bit out to the edge and spread that out. Okay. And then lay this flat on your table and just kind of use your eyes, obviously, to make sure that it's right along that base there. Okay, and you can kind of shimmy it a little bit if you need to, and then just push down from the inside. Make sure that you get that to hold nicely. Okay. So that looks great, and we're going to put the other wall up now. Okay, and that's this wall here. So what we can do is let's go ahead and glue our long tabs in place first. Let me move this glue out of the way. Okay, and get that glue right up to the edge, all the way to the corner. Spread that nice and thin, just like that. Okay, and I think the first time we didn't do it this way, but this time around, we're gonna align it like this. Make sure that it's nice and aligned at the bottom. Run your finger along that edge. Get that nice and in place, and then you can go ahead and pop it down on your table and push from the inside. Okay, there we go. And that looks nice and crisp. So at this point, we can go ahead and get our bottom glued into place, the first little section here. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this tab here and get a little bit right out to the edge. You can tell I've been crafting for quite some time today, and you start to, I guess there's a middle ground there, or a certain point where before you get fatigued, you start to get really good and precise with your glue and you're just in the zone. Okay, so we're gonna make sure that that's nice and aligned right there. Just push down from the inside, and that looks great. You can flip this out and get glue on this next tab here. This one also has an R on it. Just wanna make sure that we've got the right piece. Okay, let's fold that in. And again, just kind of watching and looking to make sure that it's nice and lined up with that base. And then we just push down. And there we go. Okay, so that is it. Now, just like we did before, you can go ahead and close this piece up. And we're going to want to do both sides at the same time here. So let's get some glue on this tab. Work a little bit out to the edge. Glue on this tab. Work it out to the edge. Spread it nice and thin if you want. I find when I do that, I don't get any glue that squirts out, or if I do, it's very minimal. Okay, so just getting that glued in place. Get a nice angle there, making sure that it's nice and aligned. I'm gonna move over quickly to the other side, because that glue on the other side, since I squeezed it, it's partially set for me, so I can feel comfortable. Now I'm putting it flat down on my table and pushing with my fingers here. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, and it looks like I didn't hold this in place long enough, and this is the same area that I had trouble with before. So I'm just gonna grab my pick-me-up tool and go in and add a little extra glue to this area up here and just push and hold that down until it's nice and set for me. This is kind of an important little corner here because it's going to hold up the rest of the project, and we need that to be nice and sturdy for when we start gluing the roof and the dormer area in place. Okay. So now, just like we did last time, we're going to glue just this part here to the front, like that. So this tab here also has a little R on it. Go ahead and get your glue on there. Okay. And let's spread that out. Get it out to the edge. Okay, and just make sure that you get that nice and aligned, nice and flush. Okay, and get your hand under there and just squeeze a little bit, and you can put that down on your table and push down with more force. And get that to really stick. Okay, so that looks good. And we can fold this over to make room for these tabs. Okay, and then, oops. And just hold that like that. And get that glue out to the edges. Okay. Spread that thin. Spread that out nice and thin. Wipe up any excess and get that in place. Might need to kind of shimmy things around a little bit here. Squeeze that. Nice. And move over to the other side. Get that in place. Stick your fingers in there and push down. There we go. Okay, so now we can lay this down on our table, and let's get glue on these tabs here. Oops. And one right out to the edge. I'm not going to smear that just yet, because when I do, it tends to set quicker. So I'm going to place my glue first and then spread it out. Okay, and the other side. Clean that up. And go ahead and close this up now. You can get your fingers in there nicely. Just make sure that you've got the alignment nice and precise on one side. And that's partially set now, so we can move over to the other side and get that glued into place. Oops. Oh no. I accidentally lifted up a little corner down there. Okay. There we go. And that's okay. I lifted up this little corner here, but there's going to be a roof that goes on there, so no harm, no foul. Okay, great. So, just like we did the first time, we want to take and construct our little dormer window. Okay, so we've done this before, but we're going to do it one more time here. And just need to put some glue on these little tabs here so we can create the structure of this thing. And we're just connecting one side to its neighbor using the little tab there. And then while that's drying, go ahead and get our glue on the next little tab there. And I'm going to fold this a few times so it sits nicely. Get that in place. Just make sure that you've got the correct angle there. It's nice and matched up. There we go. Move that out of the way and get our glue on the next one. Okay. There we go. And now when we go to put this in, just like before, there's a series of tabs that we need to glue to the inside. Now I showed you using the flashlight of my phone. I showed you where those go, so I'm not going to show you again. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So there's our little window. We're going to pop it through the top and then pop it through this little hole here. Now because of all the panels and stuff like that, you just want to try to get it in, get it through without breaking anything. There we go. Okay, make sure that that's nice and flush up at the top. And then again, I don't actually have my phone on me, but you saw it the first time, and all you want to do is get those tabs glued in on the inside here. I wonder if you can see that. There, you can kind of see the shadows of the tabs there. But anyway, I did show you that before, so go ahead and get those glued into place. Just do one at a time, and then your window will be nice and in place. Just make sure that as you're gluing this stuff, that you have it nice and flush with where it's supposed to be. Okay. And just work your way around one tab at a time. Probably start at the top here, just because it's easier to reach and it'll kind of anchor the window for you nicely, making the rest of the process a little easier. And just be patient while that really gets a good hold. Okay, just kind of push from the inside and from the outside, get that force in there. Okay, and I've got a few more here to glue into place. A little challenging, but not that bad. Just don't overdo it with the glue. A little bit goes a long way. And again, just push from the inside and from the outside, just kind of creating a sandwich effect there. get those tabs to stay nicely for you. Okay. All right, I have 2 more little tabs down here that I want to glue. You don't want to skip any of the tabs because then a little bit here or there will start drooping and it just won't look as seamless. So don't cut any corners. Get them all nice and glued in place. Okay. There we go. And there we go. Okay. So our window is in place, and you know, we can go ahead and decorate this thing just like we did the first time. I have no problem with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and this piece here. We're going to put glue on these little tabs here. Okay, and I'm just going to glue one side. I want it to be flush. You can actually put this down on your table now that you've got the angle right. There we go. Just make sure that it's nice and flush on the front. You can shimmy it around a little bit. Okay, and then grab your glue. Get your glue on this other little tab here. And get that glued into place. You know, the more you do this, especially the same project, you kind of find better ways of doing things, and that's why if you're doing something for the first time, especially one of our really complex projects, and it just doesn't come out the way you want it to, don't feel bad. Okay, and now we're going to put some glue on the front of this here. We're going to put our little black piece on here. And we're going to glue this whole thing to the window, to the windows. Okay, just get that nice and aligned, and I shouldn't have done that because it's going to show through. So I'm going to smear that so it doesn't show up as much, and I'm going to actually put glue on the back of this instead because there are little cutouts on this. So there you go. Live TV, folks. I do make mistakes sometimes, and that's okay because it's going to dry clear, so it's not the end of the world. Right now it looks a little white there, but that's okay. It's going to look fine. And it's a haunted house, so it's going to have its imperfections. Okay. All right, so now that's going to go right on top like that. Okay, so we can go ahead and put our glue right on this part here. And all these little accent pieces and embellishments really hide some of the imperfections that you might have from other portions of the project, which is really nice, because then even if you kind of goof up or something doesn't look right initially, you can always go back and fix things as you go. Had a little bit of glue kind of smeared out. I'm just gonna rub some of it off. The rest of it will dry clear, so you won't even be able to tell. Okay. All right, so while we're at it here, we can go ahead and put our bottom roof on. No harm in doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and curl these shingles at the bottom. Okay, and I'm gonna put glue. Just wanna make sure that I can put glue on this whole thing. Okay, so we kind of just don't want to go all the way out to the edge on this. Just kind of keep it somewhat inside on the outer edge of it so that we don't get any of that glue popping out. Just like that. And just pop that in. Just like that. Get it right up to the to that little crease there where the angle starts to change. And just push down a little bit. Okay, so that looks good. Let that set. And now we're going to put our little roof together. Okay, so that is made up of these pieces here. And now, as you can see, we've got the bigger piece here for the bigger chimney. Okay, so this part at the top is nice and flush. It's flush around the side. It's just the bottom that kind of hangs off a little bit. So you want to get your glue around these areas for sure. And then just don't glue all the way down to the bottom. I'd say probably right about there is fine. And just get that in place. Make sure that you're matching up the hole for the chimney perfectly. You can push that down and just push around that area there. Okay, and this one here, you can put glue all the way around it since this one does not hang off at all. Okay, just like that. Okay, and let's get that in place. Make sure that it's nice and flush along the bottom. And mine is not. There we go. And just push down. Okay, so we already have our chimney put together. Now remember, this is going to be on the right side of the haunted house. It's going to be like this. So we want the chimney angled up like this. Okay, so we're going to stick it through like that. And we're going to glue it down just like that. Okay, so go ahead and move this out of the way. Go ahead and get your glue, just a little bit of glue on each of these little triangular tabs, and just squeeze it between your two fingers to get that to stick. And there's another one there. Get that in place. Hold for a few seconds. And go ahead and grab the next one. I'm going to thin that out a little bit. Okay, and last but not least, a little piece there. I'm going to thin that out and just push and hold that. All right, so there's our little chimney. Okay, and all that's left to do is pop that right on top. Got a few little accent pieces, and we're pretty much ready to embellish this thing here. Okay, so let's go ahead and, now this side is completely flush, so let's start on this side here. Go ahead and get my glue on this tab. I don't need to worry about, well, actually, we could get it out to the edge there. Let's try that. This side does, should be pretty seamless as well. Okay, make sure I'm doing this right. Yep. Okay, so let's get that nice and aligned. Let me pull this, fold this up really quick, just to make this part a lot easier for me. So I can just kind of use the other part of the house as kind of a guide as to where to place this. Okay, so oops. It's a little testy here, this little area, but it's doable. Okay, just do your best to, I guess you could fold that back like that, just to get your hand in there a lot easier like this. Okay, and just push that into place. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and put glue on these two tabs here, this one and this one, so we can glue this side of the roof down. Okay, let's scoot it over to the other side here. Oops, this side here. And spread that out. Spread that out. Okay, and go ahead and get that in place. Make sure it's nice and aligned with the front of the house. Now remember, we've got a little trim piece that's going to go on top of that. So if you do make a little boo-boo here, it's not the end of the world. We're going to cover that up nicely, but you still want to get that nice and perfectly aligned and adhered. Okay, so hold that in place while it sets. And then we can go ahead and close this thing up on this side here. Okay, so we are going to want to do all three of these to close it up. Get our glue out to the edge. Now this part is going to hang over a little bit, so I guess this is not as important. I got a little crazy with the glue there. Spread that thin. Okay, so you can go ahead and pull these up a tiny little bit. That was way too much glue there. Pull these up so that as we push this down, it grabs a little more surface area. Here we go. Just like that, and just like that. And just kind of squeeze as much of the surface area on both sides as you can to get that to stick. We're going to let that set. Oops. Hold that in place. Now if you want, I think we're just going to have to hold it like this. That's fine. Okay, give that ample time to really set, especially down here at the bottom. Okay. Now I did cake the glue on there pretty intensely, and that's why it's taking longer to set. So you see how a little goes a long way. You don't need to cake the glue on that much. A little bit does the job. Okay, so there's our roof. Okay, and now one thing that I didn't show you on the first side of the house is this little trim piece here. And again, like I said, if you make a little boo-boo with the roof, this will hide it nicely for you. So you want to go ahead and just apply your glue pretty much to just this area below the diamond, little diamond shape there. Make sure you get it out to the ends. Okay, and just kind of use your fingers to align that so that it contours the edge of this nicely. So you can see here, I'm just kind of taking and running my fingers down this little piece here just to make sure that it's right up along the edge of the roof there. Okay, and that looks nice. Okay, and then there's also a little piece on the back. It's going to go like this. You want to go ahead and get that glued down. And now I have a little piece here that's sticking out, and I don't like that. So I'm going to grab my little pick-me-up tool. I'm going to lift this up, get a little extra glue under here, and rub off any excess and just push and hold that down. Keep my finger on there until it's completely set. Okay, so again, I'm just making sure that I'm following the nice contour of the roof here to get that piece on. So we have our left, we have our right, we have our center. Okay, now the light is not really great for you right there, but there is our completed haunted house, and that is looking really good. There's a few more little pieces here that we need to put on, and then we're going to get this thing onto our base. Now, this little piece here is going to go right on the front here, like so. And actually, before we do that, actually, you know what? We can do that now. That's fine. Okay, so that's going to go right about here. Okay, and what you want to do is first find your glue. Okay, we're going to put glue on the back of this thing. Just little dots or just really thin lines. I'm going to do dots. Maybe a few lines. Okay, you want it just above the window, and the ends of these should match up with the side of the house. And make sure that you have it nice and centered, nice and level. Oops. And you want to give this some time to dry. Okay. You can kind of push from the inside here, that little tab in there. Okay. All right, so next thing we're going to do, once that's completely set, is we're going to join all three of these together by putting glue on the sides here. And then we're going to put it on our base, and we can discuss the base here in a second. Okay, so we already put this together really early on in the video. There are a series of score marks here to help you with the placement of this piece, which we embossed with like a stone embossing folder to make it look like a nicely paved stone walkway, entryway, whatever you want to call it. So let's get that glued into place. And again, just kind of use those little score marks on here to help you get that nice and centered. Should be flush with the front. Okay, let's kind of inch that up a little bit if it's not flush. Wipe off any excess glue that we may have on here. And what I'm actually going to do, you could just do this. What I would suggest doing is getting some foam board, which I have here. Okay, and let me move this out of the way. It's a pretty big piece. We're going to glue this to the foam board. So I am just going to make sure that it's flush with one side here, so I have less to cut. Okay, but what you want to do, and you don't want to, that's exactly what you don't want to do. Now the haunted house is going to be sitting on this thing pretty much completely. So if this paper does warp, I don't think it's going to be that noticeable, but I would be just pretty easy on the glue, especially out to the edges. Okay, we're going to glue this onto our foam board, and then we're going to cut it out of, cut this whole thing out using an X-Acto knife. And we're going to adhere our haunted house to this, just to make it nice and sturdy. Okay. That seems to be on nicely. So again, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife at this point and just cut this out following the line on the paper. Okay, I might actually be cutting a little bit of the paper off, but that's okay. Just do your best to follow that line as precisely as you can, and then we can go ahead and begin. Okay, so I've got my hot glue gun out. It is warming up, and I have this this 1/4 inch ribbon here. This is a 3/8 inch foam core, so it is going to stick up a little bit, but not too bad. And what I'm doing is, since this is the front, I don't want there to be any seams as far as the ribbon goes, so I kind of am strategically placing this ribbon around here so that it just ends at the end in the back. Okay, so you don't see any seams. This will be nice and seamless. And I'm going to start at the front because that's where it needs to be the most beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my glue right on the front here. Okay, and while it's flat on my table here, just go ahead and press that up against the foam core and just push that down nicely. There we go. And just kind of do it in stages. I'm gonna go ahead and work on this side here now. I'll just lift that up and get some hot glue on there. Never was a fan of hot glue. It's so messy, sometimes unpredictable, but it sure does dry really quick. And I wouldn't leave this to regular craft glue. So, okay, so that looks nice. I don't know if you can really see that. I'll just glue the back of this together. If you need to trim this ribbon a little bit, you can definitely do that right as you get to the back of it here. What I'm probably going to do is glue these pieces together first and then glue it down onto my base. Okay, so I'm going to use my hot glue here. Actually, okay, so we can go ahead and get our glue on here. And the most important thing is getting it right up to the edge here. Okay, and do your best not to encroach over that little line down there. And let's spread that glue nice and thin, as close as we can get without going over. That sounded like a Price is Right reference. Okay, so most importantly, just make sure that the bottom is flush, and then also just make sure that it's nice and flush at the top too, or right here at the seam. And make sure that that is as flush as you can get it. Okay, and just hold that together. You might have a little bit of glue that squirts out, and that's quite all right. Again, just make sure that that bottom is nice and flush. That is the most important thing. And then we can always go in and add a little bit of glue here and there if we need to. But that bottom does need to be flush so it sits nicely. Okay, and just hold that in place until it really sets. And then we can glue the whole thing down on our base. Okay, so I do have a little bit of glue that's kind of squirting out there, but again, it's gonna dry clear and you won't even see it, but it is very important right now that we hold this. And if there was some way I could clamp this together, I would, just to ensure that it stays together nicely. Okay, so give that a few seconds. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. And then we can go ahead and mount this to our base and work on our trees and our bats. And this thing will be done. Okay, so I think I gave that other side enough time to dry. I'm going to go ahead and get my glue on this side now. Give it plenty of glue. No one's going to see this. And then just a nice thin line right up to the edge so we can kind of work that out to the edge as close as possible without going over. Just like that. And I'm going to hit this with a little more glue up here. Maybe just a little more there. There we go. Okay, get that nice and aligned. You can actually do it this way. It's fine. And just push that in place and hold it nice and tight until it's set. Make sure it's nice and flush on the bottom. You can kind of stick your hand inside here if you need to get this to really stick. Okay, so we've got the sides connected now, and we can go ahead and mount this to our base. Just a few more things to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this down like that, and I am going to use hot glue on this whole thing to get this down on my base. And then we're just going to And we're just going to get it nice and glued down. That's not working. Regular glue will work too, since we're just gluing it to another piece of paper, so that's fine. All right, so let's move that out of the way and take this whole thing. The most important thing is just to make sure that you get the little walkway aligned, and then focus on making sure that the border on each side is as identical as you can get it, and then the angle and the border on the front here is as identical as you can get it as well. Okay, so something like that. You can push down from the inside of that to get that in place, and just give that a little bit of time to set. Okay, you can put your little lid back on top here. Okay, so let's see if I can show you what that looks like. There you go. Okay, there we go. And we can go ahead and work on our little bats now. Okay, so here is the haunted house here. The thing is huge, and it's awesome. Look at that. That is pretty BA, if I do say so myself. So all that's left to do, and let me go ahead and grab this stuff here, is we've got a few ghosts here that you can just go ahead and adhere to the windows, have them little popping off with a pop dot or something, like they're coming out of the window. Okay, and we've got these little bats, and we've got some wire, and what we're going to do is we're going to take two bats and sandwich them back to back with a wire in the middle. Okay, so this may actually be helpful to have some hot glue on hand for this as well. Okay, so with the little bats here, find the two bats that are the same exact size. Those are going to get sandwiched between some wire, and we're going to kind of dangle those off of the top tower here. In just a second, I'll show you that. Okay, and then there's two bats, and then there's two extra bats here. And what we're going to do with those is we're just going to take our dowel. Okay, I'm going to get a 3/8 inch dowel, and I'm just going to kind of curl his wings in a little bit, and we're just going to adhere the little bat to the side of the tower. Okay, and then do another one like here. Okay, so can do that in a second. Now, as far as this one goes, what we're going to do is we're going to take some wire, okay, and I'm going to hot glue the wire to the back of one of these. Just need a tiny little bit of hot glue right in the center there. Just a tad. You don't need too much. And we're going to place the wire right in the middle of his belly. Let me get this wire out of here. I have to straighten this out. Okay, just make sure that that's got a hold, just like that. And then take the other side and just glue that down to kind of create like a sandwich effect. Okay, so let's go ahead and just throw a couple dots on here. Whoops. I went a little overboard with the glue there on my poor little bat. And just glue that together. Just sandwich it nicely. And give that a few seconds to dry. Wipe off any excess glue that you might have on there, especially if you're using the hot melt glue. Okay, so you're going to do this twice. Once with this bat, once with the other bat. And then what you can do is take like a little dowel, okay, and kind of curl the wire around the dowel a few times, or however many times you want. Just like that. And then cut it, kind of dangle it off. And then we have this one extra piece here. What you're going to do is you're going to feed this wire through one of the little X's here. Okay. And he's going to be kind of sticking off the roof like this. Okay, so you can go ahead and either tape it or hot glue it. I may as well just use a little bit of hot melt glue to get that to stay in place. I think it'll do a better job of keeping it in place. So just kind of hold that up against the hot glue there. Wait for that to set. And then we're going to take this and glue this on top of our tower, okay, to hide the fact that we've got some glue on this little guy here. Okay, so I just need my wire cutters to cut off the rest of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this right about there. So there's my first little bat. Okay, and let's go ahead and do that one more time here. So take one of your bats, grab a little bit of wire, and get it ready. Just gonna put a little bit of hot melt glue right on his belly. And just get that right in place. Okay. And we can go ahead and glue the other side onto them. This time I'm not going to go crazy with the glue, or so I think. I have some really cool glow-in-the-dark little, I don't forget what they're called now. These are called glow drops. And I'm going to use those for their eyes so that they glow in the dark. So we're just sandwiching this piece between the wire, or the wire is getting sandwiched between these two pieces, I should say. Okay, and then again, you can go ahead and take and wrap this around. I don't know, however many times you want. I think there's going to be a limit because of the weight of the paper. It's only going to be able to sustain so much. I think this could actually go a few more times here. So I'm just going to wrap it around a few more times. I want this one to maybe stick out a little bit more. Okay, and I'm going to feed that through the little X until he's right about where I want him. Okay, and then I'm going to hot glue that down. Try to thin it out so it doesn't get all bulky and bumpy. Okay, and just be patient while that sets. I'm going to go ahead and clip this off. Okay, just like that. And then we can take this piece here and get our glue on here. And we're going to take this and glue that right to the top, just like that. Okay, so we got some cute little bats dangling off here. Just like that. Okay, and we put that right on top. Now actually, I've got, let me get my pop dots. Really wanted to show you this project from start to finish, so I've come this far. I'm not backing down now. I'm gonna put a little pop dot on the back of this guy. Okay, I'm gonna curl his wings out. And I'm gonna go ahead and place him right there. That's perfect. Grab another little piece of a pop dot, put that on his back, and put him about here. Set a different angle. Okay, so there's your tower full of bats. And that is just the little cherry on top there. That's gonna look really cool. Okay, so again, our little ghosts here. Pick a window, any window, whatever window you want to put them on. A little pop dot somewhere on his belly is probably enough to get him to stick. Let me bring this in. I am really, really loving this project right now. There we go. So he's coming out of that window, and then this ghost looks even scarier. Okay, let's put a little pop dot in one of the areas where there's plenty of real estate. Okay, and this ghost is going to be coming out from this window here. Okay, which leaves our trees. Okay, and go ahead and get these trees together. Okay, there's a brown piece and a black piece. So go ahead. This smaller one has like a double fold on it. Okay, and that is to give you a little bit of room for some glue. And what we're going to do, is we're going to take this little piece here, just with a few little drops here. I'm going to spread that out. And we are going to glue that right to the center of this one, making sure that it's nice and flush at the bottom. Okay, it's going to give us a nice dimensional tree. You can actually glue that flat for a second. Okay, and once that's set, you kind of pull it out to give it that dimensional look, and then we're going to glue it right to the actual ribbon here on the front. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.